So hello again, and it's good to reconnect after a little bit of a break. We returned from Scotland about just over a week ago, and we are currently house sitting for some friends in a nice quiet corner of Coldstream until our townhouse is finished, which should hopefully be within about a month. A few of you have inquired as to how things went back in Scotland and how my folks are doing, and so let me give you a quick recap and then we'll jump into something new. So we had about 5.5 weeks in Scotland and just had really a lovely time altogether. The weather was really surprisingly good for what you might consider to be typical Scottish weather, and so we got to enjoy so much good outdoor times with hiking and walking and fishing and tennis and seeing some of our favourite sites. We spent a little while in St Andrews, which was lovely, but most of it was around about the west coast in an area called Argyll, which is where my folks live, and we spent much time there. As many of you know, we had anticipated the possibility of relocating back to Scotland for the next big chapter of our lives. So we went this time in a definite posture of discernment to try and understand what might be the next big junction in our lives with the possibility of a move back. We looked at locations, we looked at real estate, we looked at opportunities and possibilities, and to be honest, we came away with the sense that the door just isn't opening. And so that whole dream is really not going to materialize the way that we'd perhaps thought, which is a loss and it's a little bit disorienting. But at the same time, if God is in this, then there is sovereignty and faith and trust that needs to be at play through and through. And so we're here in Vernon and considering this now to be where we're going to be based for the next chapter of our lives. Now, because I've spent so much time in the last number of years really daydreaming, thinking out loud, planning, and trying to understand the possibilities of the move, it's a bit disconcerting to find ourselves really in the place that we're in. We'd applied for particular visas, they got rejected. I'd applied for a job, that didn't materialise, and so there's been very concrete steps that we'd attempted to take that didn't take hold, and so we're trying to now recalibrate for the journey ahead. So it's with that in mind that I'm wanting to launch into a series of meditations on Isaiah chapter 40. For myself, I feel like this is a reset moment, a time to really stop and look around and reassess and then take new steps forward and to trust God in His provision and in His wisdom for all that is needed for us here in this area, for my folks in Scotland, and for our ministry as it might develop. So Isaiah chapter 40 for me has been probably the most important go-to chapter in the Bible for the last 30 years of my life. It's just been one of those places where it always has something good to say. And it has a very particular voice for the people of Israel that I've found really helpful. So the next few weeks are going to be a meditation through Isaiah 40, as much for my own good and hopefully for yours too. So here's the context of Isaiah 40. Isaiah is given prophetic, visionary understanding of what is to come for the people of Israel. And the situation is that the Israelites have been in exile for 70 years. They were there as a result of calculated, intentional rebellion. Okay? The forefathers, the generations before, knew what they were doing. They were snubbing their nose at Yahweh. They were pledging loyalty to foreign powers. They were disregarding the faith that they had inherited. And so it was very intentional, calculated sin that was in their lives that led to their exile. And now there is going to be a return from exile, a rescue by God to bring His people again back to Jerusalem. So Isaiah is given insight into this and a voice to speak to it. So Isaiah 40 is the junction in the whole book of Isaiah that this starts to materialize. So what is the first words of Yahweh to his people who have hardened their heart, been in exile, and now the only prayers that they utter are prayers of complaint. If they pray at all, it's to complain. That's it. What does God say to them? And we might think that God's first words would be, well, have you learned your lesson yet? Or, okay, here's your last chance. But again, we're confronted with the lavish and outlandish generosity of God. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 1. Comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and tell her that her warfare has ended, her iniquity has been forgiven, and that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. I'll stop there, that's enough. God's first word to his people after 70 years of exile is comfort. Comfort. This has run its course. Your sins have been forgiven. Now let's go home. It's this beautiful fatherly reconciliation. It's this wonderful restoration back into the fold of God's love and embrace. It's very much like this story of the prodigal son, where there's this intentional, calculated rebellion. And what's the response of the father to this son? Well, he wraps him up in his cloak and gives him his ring and his shoes and the feast and kisses and love. And so this is what God's doing. And the beautiful detail here is that God says, you've received from the Lord's hand double for all your sins. Now our, I guess, ingrained, reformed, pseudo-Calvinistic theological memory would probably interpret this and say, well, you've received double justice, double rebuke, double punishment for your sins, and now it's time to come home. Well, that's not what it means. The syntax and the grammar here mean that the people have received double forgiveness, double grace. In fact, that's how the whole chapter starts, isn't it? Comfort, comfort. They've received double comfort, double forgiveness for all their sins. And so God is going out of his way, it feels, to speak through Isaiah here to remind the people, you are lavishly and completely, disproportionately loved and forgiven and reconvened back into the favour of Yahweh, that you might now make this long and difficult and important journey onto the next chapter of your lives. So if you may be feeling a bit disoriented or disjointed with your life, if you're feeling at a junction or as if God is distant and has his arms folded and a look of disappointment on his face, then be reminded from Isaiah 40 that is not our God. Even when there is this difficult rebellion within the people, the heart of God is comfort and forgiveness and restoration and bringing back to the center of his will despite their stubbornness. So just a beautiful encouragement for all of us, I think, especially if we find ourselves at a place where we're trying to reset our sails and refind our compass so that we can continue to walk with God through all that is ahead of us. So, hopefully some encouragement and some comfort from Isaiah chapter 40. It's good to be reconnected, and we will do this again soon. Till next time, peace.